everybody, it's me, Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie. On this episode of CD Junkie, I'm going to show you my Elvis CD collection. This isn't like one of those like bragging, like, ooh, look what I have. Because I've held off on making this video for a couple years because I have nothing compared to a lot of Elvis fans out there. But I have quite a few. And I'm going to break it down into box sets and regular CDs and Follow That Dream releases. I'm going to start off actually with box sets because they're the closest to me. And plus, I'm going to start with the granddaddy of them all. This is the ultimate Elvis. This is the 60 CD box set. And the thing about this is this contains everything that Elvis released during his lifetime on RCA Records. So it's got the studio albums, the soundtrack albums, the gospel albums, the Christmas albums, the live albums, everything released from 1955 to 1977. So if there's a non-album single, it's going to be either on one of the compilations or it's going to be added as a bonus track. So this covers his entire RCA output, not anything released since his passing. So no alternate takes, anything like that. Now, unfortunately, from my move from Northern California to Southern California, the box was damaged, but it doesn't matter to me because the CDs are in perfect shape and I don't intend to get rid of this. So anyway, I wanted to show you that first. And then this box will explain why I'm missing some things in the regular CD department. But I've got some more box sets here, and we're going to start with the Elvis, the Complete 50s Masters. This covers both Sun and RCA. And this box, I believe, is still available, but it's in like a 6x6 and no longer in this size. I also have the Essential 60s Masters. This features a bulk of his 60s recordings non-soundtrack. And I'll show you the soundtrack companion to this, which is only a 2 CD set. I'll show you that a little bit later. And finally, the 70s box set. But here's a couple more sort of the smaller box sets here. This is A Boy from Tupelo, which covers all his pre-RCA stuff. So this is going to have his Sun recordings. It covers basically 53 to 55. And that's a great collection there. If you love the early rockabilly Elvis, that's definitely what you want. Here's one called Prince from Another Planet. It's basically the Live at Madison Square Garden expanded edition. I also have the Stack Sessions. These are Elvis's recordings from the 70s from Stack Studios. And, I'll have to admit that those are not my favorite sessions by Elvis. Now, here's 2 sets of recordings from Nashville, from Elvis in Nashville. And these are 1970 recordings, and there's a total of 4 discs there. Then there's also Back in Nashville, and these are also from the same sessions. Another 4 discs of outtakes and masters, and it's just really an incredible set. Now, with those out of the way, let's go through some of my normal regular CDs. I've got Promised Land, includes bonus tracks, and I've got Moody Blue on CD, which has a different cover and contains the From Elvis Presley Boulevard album as bonus tracks. I've also got Elvis in Concert, which was released after his passing. And then I have some soundtrack recordings, including Loving You with bonus tracks. Jailhouse Rock has bonus tracks. King Creole has bonus tracks. Then I've got these twofers that feature 2 different soundtracks on one, and there's some more soundtracks on one disc. And then there's some more. Yeah, I think most of these I'm going to have to part with. I mean, some of them do have some various, maybe an outtake or something on them, or an alternate take. And of course, there's Viva Las Vegas and Roustabout. Now that's it with separate soundtracks. Remember, I have all the soundtracks in that 60 CD box that I showed you at the very beginning. Now I have some of the Golden Records collections here, and that has bonus tracks. Then I don't have Volume 2, which is the most famous of them. This is actually probably the most listened to Elvis CD in my collection. It is just incredible. It has all the early 60s hits, and this one actually has bonus tracks as well. Again, I think I'm going to have to get rid of some of these because I have the tracks everywhere else. There's Gold Records Volume 4, and then, of course, Gold Records Volume 5. Next up, I'm going to show you some of the legacy editions that I own. These are all 2 CD sets with bonus material on them. This is truly an incredible release. You're going to get things like Suspicious Minds, In the Ghetto, all those songs from that period, Kentucky Rain. What an incredible period for Elvis. There's On Stage. That's the way it is. Elvis Country. Remember I showed you the Prince from Another Planet? This is the actual Madison Square Garden album with bonus material. There is Elvis Aloha from Hawaii with bonus material. Recorded live on stage in Memphis. And Elvis Today. Now I'm going to show you some of the compilations that I have, such as Heart and Soul, which is like a collection of love songs. But the reason I grabbed that many years ago is because it had the stereo version of Love Me Tender, which had not been released before. And here is Such a Night, which has a bunch of outtakes from the Elvis's back sessions from 1960. Remember how I showed you that 60s Essential box, sort of the tall, thin one, and I said that didn't have any soundtrack recordings? This right here is essentially like the best of the soundtrack recordings. There are a couple previously unreleased alternate takes on there as well. But if you just want a best of the soundtracks, you would want to get this one. Here is a 2 CD set called the 68 Comeback Special, which contains a lot of alternate and rare recordings from those sessions. And here is a 2 CD set called Suspicious Minds. This contains recordings from the 69 Memphis sessions, along with a bunch of alternate takes as well. Here's a 3 CD set, That's the Way It Is, which focuses on the film and the album of the same name, and it features a lot of previously unreleased recordings. Here's an interesting one. This is called Burning Love. What they did is there should have been an album around the song Burning Love, but Colonel Tom Parker was Colonel Tom Parker, and he just made that a single and threw other songs around and whatever. But here they compiled the songs that would have been maybe on an album around that time period. There was supposed to be an album called Standing Room Only. I'll talk about that later when I get to FTD. But if you love basically Elvis from 71, 72, 73, this is definitely going to be up your alley. It's both studio and live, and it's completely awesome. Rhythm and Country focuses on the Stax studio recordings. Remember I showed you that box set just a little while ago. This is just a condensed version, came out before that box did. Now we've all heard about the Jungle Room, which is where Elvis recorded his last 2 albums, basically in the Jungle Room at Graceland. And this is a collection called Way Down, which features songs off of both of those albums and alternate takes. Here are 2 separate Christmas albums. Both of those contain the majority of songs from both Christmas albums that he released in the 50s and 71. Either or, you're going to get pretty much the complete Christmas recordings by Elvis on these. And then there's the Cirque du Soleil show, Viva Elvis, and here is the soundtrack to that. Very much similar to the Beatles' Love, how they take existing recordings and mix and match them around. And finally, in the regular CDs, there was a big craze a couple years ago where they would take existing recordings by an artist and then add the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra over them. And there's 2 albums in the Elvis collection. I believe there's one more, which is a Christmas one. But by the time the second one came out, I was already kind of done with the idea, so I didn't bother with a Christmas one. And now it's time to go through my Follow That Dream label Elvis titles. And for those that don't know, Follow That Dream is an official Elvis label, and they feature a lot of rare recordings, reissues, remasters, all this crazy stuff. Before I get into the bulk of them, I wanted to show you when they first started out, they were putting out CDs in the normal CD case, digipack. This one here is, essentially rehearsals and recordings from the early 70s. Really fantastic. Stage Rehearsal pretty much says it all right there. And this is pretty much filled with previously unreleased recordings. Now, the thing about Follow That Dream, like I said, it's officially licensed from RCA. They pull all these recordings off of the master tapes, so they sound absolutely incredible. But you can only get them online. You're not going to be able to walk into a store and get them. I have a few more regular size CDs here. Now, in the early 80s, they were putting out CDs called Our Memories of Elvis, where they would go in and they would just strip all the overdubs and just present Elvis just as he sounded in the studio. And there were 2 volumes of that came out, and there was a third one that was supposed to come out that never did. Well, FTD actually put out this 2 CD set, and it contains both the ones that were released and the previously unreleased Our Memories of Elvis. Well, remember I showed you just a few minutes ago that Way Down CD that focused on the Jungle Room recordings? Well, here is something called the Jungle Room Sessions. And this is pretty much outtakes from that era. This was the first time that anything had been released outside of the regular albums. There's actually a song on here called Fire Down Below, which the band had recorded, and they were anticipating Elvis to go into the studio and record his voice over it. But he never had the opportunity, obviously. And this is the only CD that you can find that song. So it's called the Jungle Room Sessions on Follow That Dream. The final regular size CD that I have is called Too Much Monkey Business. Now, what this is, in the early 80s, again, Felton Jarvis, the producer, went into Elvis's master tapes, pulled off most, or if not all, of the instrumentation, and created new instrumentation, that sounded more modern, that sounded more 80s, with Elvis's original vocals. Now, when the album finally came out, it was called Guitar Man, but this CD here contains all the songs that were released on Guitar Man and other songs that they worked on that were never released. And this is not essential unless you're an Elvis fan. Now let's talk about the 7-inch packaging for Follow That Dream. And I'll briefly explain with this first one here. This is Potluck. This is a reissue of his album, Potluck. Now, most of these are 2 CD sets. And what they do is they contain the original album as well as loads of alternate takes. So you're looking at a 10 or 12 track album suddenly becoming a 60 track 2 CD release, and it's really, really incredible. When the Beatles do their deluxe box sets for each album, they'll have a lot of alternate takes, but they'll pick like the prime 1 or 2 versions of it. Where the Elvis ones will give you on one of these it has like 7 versions of Little Sister, take 1 through 7. But it's fascinating because you hear how the band and Elvis evolved. And, being an Elvis fan, it's absolutely incredible. Now, the first ones I'm going to show you are just expanded editions of original albums, such as Potluck, Elvis for Everyone, His Hand in Mine, Elvis, also known as the 68 Comeback Special, From Elvis in Memphis, Elvis Back in Memphis, That's the Way It Is, Elvis Country, Love Letters from Elvis, Elvis Now, Elvis, also known as Fool, Elvis, Raised on Rock, Good Times, Promised Land, Today, From Elvis Presley Boulevard, and then, of course, Moody Blue. And like I said, they all are 2 CDs so far. Now, the ones I just showed you on Follow That Dream, those were just, straight studio albums. This is also a studio album, but I kept it separate, which is the Christmas. So that's 2 CDs of Christmas. Now, let's get into soundtracks. These are in no order. So there's Jailhouse Rock, Live a Little, Love a Little. That's a single disc with a lot of bonus tracks. Blue Hawaii, Kid Galahad, that's also a single disc. Follow That Dream is a single disc. Flaming Star is a single compact disc album. It Happened at the World's Fair is a single disc. Easy Come, Easy Go is a single disc. Kissin' Cousins is a single disc. Girls, Girls, Girls is a single disc. Spin Out, that's also a single disc. Now this one's interesting. This is called Elvis The Last Movies, and this contains the songs from Charo, The Trouble with Girls, and Change of Habit, and it also contains outtakes from that as well. Now, remember I showed you From Elvis in Memphis and Elvis Back in Memphis just a few moments ago? Well, here's one called From Elvis at American Sound Studio, and this is more recordings from those sessions, including outtakes. Now, let's get into some compilations here. There's that classic thing there, and that has a bunch of bonus tracks on it. There is Elvis Golden Records Volume 3. This is my favorite, as I said earlier, Elvis's Gold Records Volume 4. Now, here's an album that I don't remember coming out. I think it may have been European, and I believe it may have come out before he died, but that's a collection of hits of the 70s, and that is a 2 CD set. Now, one of the great things that Follow That Dream does is they create albums that should have come out or were supposed to come out but never did, including an album called Standing Room Only, and I believe that this was canceled because of the fact that it contained studio and live recordings, but then they decided to release the Madison Square Garden album, followed by Aloha from Hawaii, like less than a year later, I think. And in between there was the Elvis on Tour movie. So they decided, they just scrapped this whole idea. It's very similar to that Burning Love album that I showed you earlier. And just like Standing Room Only, they sort of compiled tracks that should have been on albums in the 60s, and they called one of them Guitar Man and one of them Memphis, Tennessee. And they are both excellent collections. Now we're down to the final few Elvis CDs in my collection. These are all still Follow That Dream, but these are like more expanded box sets, such as Elvis Something for Everybody sessions, which is a 4 CD set. This also includes Wild in the Country sessions, and it's really, really nice package. Now this box here is the 3 CD Viva Las Vegas sessions. And of course, Viva Las Vegas only came out as an EP. There's a booklet with the cover of it. And they've expanded it to 3 CDs, so lots of alternate takes there. Now, I think in the early 90s, RCA put out an album called For the Asking, which was sort of a collection of songs that would have made an album had those songs been gathered together and released, much like the Guitar Man and the Memphis, Tennessee one that I showed you. Well, everything from those sessions are combined in this Elvis Presley Devil in Disguise, the Lost Album sessions. Now let's continue with the Sessions albums. This is the Potluck Sessions, and that is 5 CDs. But this is the CD I was talking about earlier that had all the versions of Little Sister, Marie's the Name, and it's just fascinating to hear those songs develop in the studio. Really wonderful. The Potluck Sessions. This 4 CD set is the Elvis is Back sessions. So you get everything from that period, from early 1960. Now, the next 2 I have are absolutely superb and should be in everybody's collection, whether you're an Elvis fan or not, because these really define who Elvis really was. And this is the American Sound 1969 sessions. And, to be honest, I haven't compared to, what's on this compared to the things that I've already showed you that were recorded at the same sessions. Even if there's the same stuff, you don't need to get those and you can get this, or vice versa. If you have those, you may not need this. But still, this is incredible. 5 CDs of those sessions: Suspicious Minds, In the Ghetto, Kentucky Rain, Only the Strong Survive. Many of my favorite Elvis songs are contained in this box set. Incredible. And finally, one of the most recent releases from Follow That Dream is Elvis Aloha from Hawaii via satellite. This is the concert that was recorded in 1973. Of course, the original album cover looked like that. But that's included there. This is a 3 CD set. Now, disc 1 is the familiar concert that we all know, but it's been entirely remixed. And I'll tell you, it sounds phenomenal. Elvis's voice is much more to the front. The drums have more power. Everything has more power. There's more separation. There's even little bits and pieces that are here that are not on the original ones, such as, him introducing Jack Lord, who's in the audience. That was not on the officially released version, but it is here. So things like that make this all worthwhile. And there's like an afternoon show that's been previously released, but it's been added onto this. And then some alternate takes of the post-concert songs he recorded. And this is Elvis Aloha from Hawaii via satellite 3 CD set. Incredible. And that is it. That's all I have. So I know that people are going like, well, what about all the live albums that Follow That Dream put out? I don't really buy live albums unless they were the officially released ones like I just showed you there, only because I'm only going to listen to them once. Follow That Dream has dozens upon dozens of previously unreleased live shows. And like I said, I like to listen to them once and that's it. And maybe one day I might break down and start buying them. But, I really have to watch what I buy. And, you're all thinking, well, you should have started watching what you bought after that 60 CD box set. But what are you going to do? I know this was a long video and I tried to cut it down as much as possible. Right now we're looking at 50 minutes long. It took me 50 minutes to present this video, and whatever it is now after I've edited it, I hope that you found it interesting. I appreciate you sitting there with me and going through my Elvis CDs. Remember to like, comment, share, subscribe to ring that bell for future notifications. And until the next time, remember me. I'm Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie.